Imagine a war where secret messages decide who wins and who loses, a war where codes hold the key to victory. This was World War II, and one man changed everything: Alan Turing. Turing was a brilliant mathematician and scientist. He cracked the Nazi Enigma code, a secret code used by German forces to send messages. By breaking it, he saved thousands, maybe millions of lives. His work also led to something even bigger: the computers we use today. But despite his genius, the world did not treat him kindly. He was punished just for being himself. His story is one of intelligence, courage, and injustice. Join me as we dive into the life of Alan Turing, the Codebreaker. Alan Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in London, England. From a young age, he showed a deep love for numbers, puzzles, and patterns. He was not like most children. While others played games outside, Alan enjoyed solving math problems and reading books about science. His mind worked differently. He saw the world in a way that few people could understand. Alan's parents were part of the British government, and they traveled often. Because of this, he and his older brother spent much of their childhood in boarding schools. These were strict schools where children had to follow many rules. But Alan was not interested in rules. He was interested in ideas. His teachers often said that he was brilliant but did not always listen. He liked to learn things in his own way. One of the most important moments in Alan's early life was meeting a boy named Christopher Morcom. Christopher was also very smart, and he loved science just as much as Alan did. They became best friends, spending hours talking about mathematics and the universe. Alan admired Christopher, and their friendship pushed him to work even harder. But something very sad happened. When Alan was only 17 years old, Christopher suddenly died from an illness. This broke Alan's heart. He was devastated, but instead of giving up, he threw himself even more into his studies. He wanted to honor Christopher's memory by continuing their shared dream of understanding the world through science. Alan went to study at Cambridge University, one of the best universities in the world. There, he impressed his professors with his incredible ability to solve complex problems. He started thinking about deep questions like how the human mind works and whether machines could ever think like people. At this time, nobody believed that machines could be intelligent. But Alan had different ideas. He started working on theories that would later lead to the invention of computers. His work at Cambridge made him famous in the world of mathematics. People started noticing his ideas, and soon he was invited to Princeton University in the United States to continue his research. At Princeton, he studied logic, mathematics, and cryptography, which is the science of making and breaking secret codes. This knowledge would become extremely important in the years to come. After returning to England, Alan's life took a turn that would change history forever. A war was coming. Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, was preparing to attack other countries. As part of their strategy, the German army used a special machine called the Enigma machine to send secret messages. These messages contained important military plans. If the British government could break the code, they would know what the Germans were planning. But Enigma was not like an ordinary code. It was extremely complicated. and nobody had ever been able to break it. Alan Turing was about to take on the biggest challenge of his life. During World War II, Germany used a powerful code system called the Enigma machine. This machine allowed them to send secret messages between their armies, submarines, and commanders. The messages contained battle plans, attack orders, and other critical information. If the Allies could read these messages, they could stop German attacks before they happened. But there was a problem. The Enigma code was considered impossible to break. It changed every day, making it even harder to crack. The British government knew they needed the smartest minds to work on this problem. They gathered a team of mathematicians, puzzle solvers, and codebreakers at a secret location called Bletchley Park. This was a quiet place in the countryside of England, but inside, some of the greatest minds of that time were working on cracking Germany's most important secret. Among them was Alan Turing. Turing quickly realized that trying to solve the Enigma code by hand was useless. The Germans changed the settings of the machine every day, which meant that there were billions of possible combinations. No human could go through all of them fast enough. But Alan had an idea. Instead of relying on people, why not use a machine to break the code? At that time, most people thought that only humans could solve problems. The idea of a machine thinking like a person sounded impossible. But Turing believed it could work. He started designing a machine that could test thousands of code possibilities in a short amount of time. If the machine could quickly find the right settings, the British military would be able to read Germany's secret messages. Building such a machine was not easy. It required time, effort, and a lot of resources. Some of his colleagues doubted him. They thought he was wasting time on something that would never work. But Turing did not give up. He worked day and night, improving his design and finding ways to make the machine faster. Finally, after months of hard work, Turing and his team built a machine called the bomb. The bomb was large and complex, filled with rotating drums and electrical circuits. It worked by quickly testing different Enigma settings until it found the right one. This was a breakthrough. Instead of taking weeks or months to crack a single message, the bomb could do it in hours. But even with the bomb, breaking Enigma was still difficult. The Germans kept improving their encryption methods, making the code harder to crack. Turing and his team had to constantly adjust their approach. One of their biggest successes came when they discovered that German messages often contained predictable words, such as Heil Hitler or weather reports. By looking for these patterns, they could speed up the decoding process. As the team at Bletchley Park got better at breaking Enigma, they started providing vital information to the British military. They intercepted messages about planned German attacks, submarine movements, and troop deployments. This allowed the Allies to change their strategies and avoid disasters. One of the most important moments came in 1941. When the British Navy used decoded Enigma messages to locate and destroy a powerful German battleship called the Bismarck. This was a turning point in the war. Turing's work at Bletchley Park remained top secret. Very few people knew what was happening there. Even after the war, many of the people involved were not allowed to talk about their work. But their efforts saved countless lives and played a major role in defeating Nazi Germany. Despite this incredible achievement, Alan Turing did not receive the recognition he deserved at that time. His work was hidden from the public, and only a small number of officials knew how important his contributions were. But his journey was not over yet. After the war ended in 1945, the world celebrated victory. Millions of people rejoiced as the fighting stopped, and countries began to rebuild. But for Alan Turing, the end of the war did not bring recognition or fame. His role in breaking the Enigma code was still a secret. The British government did not reveal how they had cracked Germany's messages. It was classified information, hidden from the public. Even some of the soldiers who had benefited from Turing's work had no idea that a mathematician had helped them win the war. While the world moved on, Turing continued his research. He had spent years designing machines to break codes. But now he had an even bigger idea. He wanted to create a machine that could think. During the war, he had built the bomb to solve a specific problem, breaking Enigma. But what if he could design a machine that could solve many different kinds of problems? What if a machine could perform calculations, make decisions, and even learn new things? At the time, most people believed that only humans could think. The idea of a machine acting like a human mind seemed ridiculous to many, but Turing believed it was possible. He started working on what he called the universal machine. This was the foundation for modern computers. Today, every smartphone, laptop, and artificial intelligence system is based on the principles that Alan Turing first imagined. In 1948, Turing joined the University of Manchester, where he helped build one of the world's first true computers. Unlike earlier mechanical machines, this new computer used electronic circuits to process information. It could store data, perform calculations, and even run simple programs. This was a major step toward the technology we use today. Turing did not just build computers. He wanted to understand intelligence itself. He asked a bold question: can machines think? To answer this, he developed a test which later became known as the Turing test. The idea was simple. If a machine could communicate with a human and convince them that it was also human, then the machine could be considered intelligent. Even today, this test is used in the field of artificial intelligence to measure how well computers can mimic human thinking. But while Turing's mind was focused on the future, his personal life became difficult. In 1952, he was arrested for being gay, which was illegal in Britain at the time. Despite all he had done for his country, he was treated as a criminal. He was given a terrible choice: go to prison or undergo chemical treatment to cure his homosexuality. Turing chose the treatment, which involved taking drugs that had harmful effects on his body and mind. He was banned from continuing his work with the government, and many of his opportunities were taken away. The man who had helped save millions of lives and laid the foundation for modern computers was now isolated, humiliated, and ignored. Despite everything, Turing continued his research in private. He kept working on mathematical theories and artificial intelligence, still believing in the power of science and logic. But the pain of being treated as a criminal weighed heavily on him. On June 7, 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home. He had eaten an apple laced with cyanide. a deadly poison. The police ruled it as suicide. He was only 41 years old. At the time, there was little public reaction. His death was barely noticed by the world. But as the years passed, people began to understand the true impact of his work. The computers that powered the modern world, the artificial intelligence that shaped the future, all of it traced back to Turing's ideas. His theories were more than just equations and machines. They were the foundation of the digital age. Decades later, people started to recognize what had been done to him. In 2009, the British government formally apologized for how he was treated. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted him a royal pardon, officially clearing his name. Today, Alan Turing is remembered as a genius, a hero, and one of the most important figures in history. But during his lifetime, he never received the respect and recognition he truly deserved. Alan Turing's story did not end with his tragic death. In the decades that followed, the world slowly began to understand just how much he had contributed. His ideas about computing, artificial intelligence, and mathematics continued to shape modern technology. Even though he was once ignored, his work became the foundation for a new era of innovation. One of the most important concepts Turing developed was the idea of a universal machine. During his lifetime, computers were simple machines that could only perform specific tasks. If you wanted a machine to do something new, you had to rebuild or reprogram it completely. Turing imagined something different. A machine that could be instructed to do many things. Instead of building new machines for each task, you could create software that told the machine what to do. This was a revolutionary idea. Today, every modern computer, from smartphones to supercomputers, operates on this principle. Turing's work on artificial intelligence also remained influential. His famous question, "Can machines think?" became the starting point for many scientists who studied AI. His Turing test provided a way to measure a machine's intelligence. In the decades that followed, computer scientists worked to build systems that could pass this test. Today, AI is everywhere. It powers voice assistants, self-driving cars, and even medical diagnosis systems. Every time a computer makes a decision, analyzes data, or interacts with humans, it follows principles that Turing first imagined. But even though Turing's ideas shaped the modern world, his legacy remained hidden for many years. His work at Bletchley Park was classified for decades. Most people did not know that he had played a key role in ending World War II. When historians finally uncovered the truth, they realized that Turing's code-breaking efforts had saved millions of lives. It is estimated that his work shortened the war by at least 2 years. This meant fewer bombings, fewer battles, and fewer deaths. Yet, during his lifetime, he received no recognition for this incredible achievement. As time passed, people started to speak out about the injustice done to him. In 2009, a British programmer named John Graham Cumming started an online petition asking the government to apologize for Turing's treatment. Thousands of people signed it. In response, the British Prime Minister at the time, Gordon Brown, issued a formal apology. He acknowledged that Turing had been treated unfairly and that Britain owed him a great debt. This was just the beginning. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted Turing a royal pardon. This meant that his criminal conviction was erased from history. It was a symbolic act, an admission that he had been wrongfully punished. But for many, it was still not enough. They believed that Turing deserved more than just an apology. He deserved to be celebrated for his genius. In 2017, the British government introduced what became known as the Alan Turing Law. This law pardoned thousands of men who had been convicted under the same outdated laws that had ruined Turing's life. It was a step toward correcting the injustices of the past. But perhaps the greatest recognition of all came in 2021, when the Bank of England announced that Alan Turing's face would appear on the £50 note. This was one of the highest honors Britain could give. It meant that every time someone used the currency, they would see the face of the man who had helped shape the modern world. His image on the banknote was more than just a tribute. It was a reminder of how much he had achieved, despite the obstacles he faced. Beyond Britain, Turing's legacy spread worldwide. Computer scientists across the globe studied his theories. Universities named buildings, scholarships, and research centers after him. Books and movies told his story, introducing new generations to his work. One of the most famous films, The Imitation Game, brought Turing's story to millions of people and helped them understand his contributions. Today, Alan Turing is recognized as one of the most important thinkers of the 20th century. His work continues to inspire scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. His ideas about artificial intelligence are more relevant than ever. As machines become more powerful and capable, the digital world we live in, from the internet to modern computing, exists because of the foundations he laid. Even though he was once ignored and mistreated, history has corrected its mistake. Alan Turing is now remembered as a hero, a pioneer, and a man whose vision changed the world. Alan Turing's ideas were far ahead of his time, and his influence continues to shape the world in ways that even he might not have imagined. His groundbreaking work in mathematics, computing, and artificial intelligence laid the foundation for modern technology. But his contributions extend even beyond these fields. To understand the true depth of Turing's genius, we need to explore how his theories and innovations continue to drive advancements in science and industry. One of the most significant areas where Turing's ideas live on is artificial intelligence. When he first proposed the Turing test in 1950, the idea of machines thinking like humans seemed like science fiction. Yet today, AI is a central part of our lives. From voice assistants like Siri and Alexa to self-learning algorithms that recommend movies, music, and even medical treatments, AI has grown far beyond what Turing could directly witness. His Turing test is still used today as a fundamental benchmark for machine intelligence, though modern AI researchers debate whether passing the test truly represents human-like thinking. Regardless, Turing's question, "Can machines think?" sparked a field of study that is now shaping industries, economies, and societies worldwide. Another field where Turing's work remains essential is cryptography. His code-breaking efforts at Bletchley Park not only helped defeat Nazi Germany but also laid the groundwork for modern cybersecurity. Today, encryption is used to protect everything from online banking to personal messages. Turing's understanding of patterns, logic, and computational efficiency, helped build early cryptographic methods that evolved into today's highly secure encryption systems. Without these advancements, digital communication would be vulnerable to hackers, governments, and criminals. Turing's mathematical theories also influenced the world of biology. Later in his life, he became interested in how patterns form in nature. He proposed mathematical models to explain how stripes, spots, and other shapes appear on animal skin and plant structures. This field, known as morphogenesis, has since developed into an important area of study in biology and medicine. Scientists now use his ideas to understand the growth of tissues, the formation of fingerprints, and even the spread of diseases. His work in this area was not fully appreciated during his lifetime, but today it is recognized as a major contribution to biological science. One of the most fascinating ways in which Turing's influence continues is in the world of quantum computing. Classical computers, which follow the principles of Turing's universal machine, process information using binary code, ones and zeros. However, researchers are now developing quantum computers that use the principles of quantum mechanics to perform calculations at speeds impossible for traditional computers. Though Turing himself never worked on quantum computing, his theories about computation provide the foundation for these new machines. Scientists still refer to Turing's work when designing quantum algorithms, showing that his ideas remain relevant even in the cutting-edge fields of science. Turing's influence is also seen in space exploration. Modern space agencies like NASA rely on complex algorithms to navigate spacecraft, analyze data, and even search for signs of life beyond Earth. These algorithms are based on the principles of machine learning and computational mathematics, both of which trace back to Turing's work. The very idea of using computers to process large amounts of data and make intelligent decisions in unknown environments is an extension of Turing's vision. His contributions continue to play a role in the search for new planets, the study of black holes, and the advancement of robotic space missions. Beyond science and technology, Turing's legacy has also influenced discussions about human rights and ethics. His persecution for being gay is now seen as a symbol of injustice, and his story has inspired movements for LGBTQ+ rights across the world. The recognition of his achievements, long after his death, has sparked discussions about how societies treat individuals who are different. His life is a reminder that true genius should never be overshadowed by prejudice, and that innovation comes from people of all backgrounds. Alan Turing's ideas continue to shape our present and future. The modern world is built upon the principles he first imagined. His legacy is not just one of past achievements, but of ongoing progress. Every time we use a computer, interact with artificial intelligence, or rely on encrypted communication, we are benefiting from the vision of a man who lived decades ahead of his time. Alan Turing's life was full of challenges, achievements, and struggles. His contributions to science and technology were extraordinary. Yet his personal life was marked by deep injustices. To truly understand his journey, we must look at both his professional successes and the personal difficulties he faced. After World War II, Turing continued his research in computing and artificial intelligence. In 1945, he joined the National Physical Laboratory in London, where he began working on the design of one of the first stored program computers. This was an important step in the history of computing because it meant that computers could now be programmed to perform multiple tasks instead of just one fixed function. Turing's ideas helped shape the development of the automatic computing engine, also known as the ACE. However, he faced many difficulties while working on this project. The development of the ACE was slow due to a lack of resources and support. Turing became frustrated because he believed in the potential of computers, but others did not always share his vision. Despite these challenges, his research led to major breakthroughs in the field of computing. In 1948, Turing moved to the University of Manchester, where he continued his work on computers. He played a key role in developing the Manchester Mark I, one of the earliest electronic stored program computers. He also became deeply interested in the question of whether machines could think. This led him to write one of his most famous papers, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, published in 1950. In this paper, he introduced the Turing test, a method for determining whether a machine could exhibit intelligent behavior similar to that of a human. This idea became the foundation of artificial intelligence and continues to be discussed by scientists and philosophers today. Turing was not only a brilliant mathematician and computer scientist, but also a man with wide-ranging interests. He became fascinated with the patterns found in nature and started applying mathematical principles to biological questions. He studied how animals develop spots, stripes, and other natural patterns. His work in this field, known as morphogenesis, was groundbreaking. He developed equations that explained how simple chemical reactions in a developing embryo could create complex biological structures. This research was ahead of its time and later became an important part of modern biology. Despite his scientific success, Turing faced severe personal struggles. In 1952, he was arrested for being in a relationship with another man. At that time, homosexuality was illegal in Britain. Instead of being recognized for his contributions to science and war efforts, he was treated as a criminal. He was given a choice between prison and chemical treatment, known as hormonal therapy, which was meant to cure his homosexuality. Turing chose the treatment, which had devastating effects on his physical and mental health. The forced hormonal therapy caused severe depression and affected his ability to work. During this period, Turing continued his research despite the hardships. However, he was now living under constant surveillance, as the British government saw him as a security risk. They feared that his knowledge of cryptography and computing could be a threat if he was targeted by foreign spies. This led to his exclusion from many important scientific discussions. He was no longer given access to the work he had once led. The man who had helped save millions of lives during World War II was now being cast aside by the very country he had served. Turing's health and mental state continued to decline. On June 7, 1954, he was found dead in his home. He had died from cyanide poisoning. A half-eaten apple was found next to his body, leading many to believe that he had poisoned himself. The official cause of death was ruled as suicide, though some researchers have suggested that it may have been accidental. Regardless of the exact cause, His tragic death was the result of a society that refused to accept him for who he was. Alan Turing's story is one of both great triumph and deep injustice. He was a man who changed the world with his ideas but was punished for simply being himself. It took decades for the world to recognize his contributions and to acknowledge the unfair treatment he endured. Today, he is celebrated as a pioneer of computing, artificial intelligence, and cryptography. His legacy continues to inspire new generations of scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers who build upon his work. Alan Turing's tragic death marked the end of his life, but not the end of his impact. His ideas and discoveries continued to shape the world long after he was gone. In the years following his death, the field of computing advanced rapidly, with many of his early ideas serving as the foundation for new innovations. However, for a long time, his contributions remained largely unknown to the public. The secrecy surrounding his wartime code-breaking work meant that his role in winning World War II was not widely recognized. At the same time, the prejudice he faced because of his sexuality caused his name to be left out of many historical discussions about computing and artificial intelligence. Despite this, those who studied computing and mathematics understood the importance of his work. His research in artificial intelligence, for example, remained highly influential. The Turing test, which he proposed in 1950, became a fundamental question in the study of machine intelligence. Researchers and engineers continued to build on his ideas, developing more advanced computers and software that could simulate human thinking. Even today, when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, we are still discussing concepts that Turing first introduced more than 70 years ago. Another area where Turing's influence remained strong was in cryptography. His work at Bletchley Park had revolutionized the field, and even though much of it was classified for decades, experts in cryptography continued to develop techniques based on his breakthroughs. Modern encryption methods used in banking, online communication, and cybersecurity owe much to the work Turing and his colleagues did during World War II. His understanding of mathematical patterns and algorithms helped shape the way information is protected in the digital age. Turing's contributions to biology also gained recognition over time. His work on morphogenesis, which explored how patterns form in nature, was far ahead of its time. Decades later, scientists began to realize that his mathematical models were accurate in explaining biological development. Researchers studying everything from animal coat patterns to cell growth found that Turing's equations described real-world processes remarkably well. This was yet another example of how his ability to think in abstract mathematical terms allowed him to see patterns in areas that others had overlooked. Although his scientific achievements were undeniable, the injustice he suffered remained a dark mark on history. For many years, there was little effort to acknowledge the wrongs done to him. But as time passed, more people began to recognize the unfair treatment he endured. Historians, activists, and members of the scientific community pushed for his name to be restored to its rightful place in history. Books and documentaries began to tell his story, and slowly, the public became more aware of the man behind some of the most important technological advancements of the 20th century. A major step in recognizing Turing came in 2009 when British Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued an official apology on behalf of the government. In his statement, Brown acknowledged that Turing had been treated in an appalling way and that his contributions had been vital to Britain's survival during the war. This was an important moment, as it was the first time that a government official publicly admitted the injustice Turing had faced. However, an apology alone was not enough to correct the wrongs of the past. In 2013, the British government went a step further by granting Turing a royal pardon. This meant that his conviction for homosexuality was officially erased from the record, recognizing that he had been punished for something that should never have been a crime. The pardon was a symbolic gesture, acknowledging that Turing had been unfairly treated and that his legacy deserved to be honored rather than hidden. This also set the stage for further discussions about justice for others who had suffered under similar laws. But perhaps the most significant recognition of Turing's impact came in 2019, when the Bank of England announced that his face would appear on the new £50 banknote. This was a powerful tribute, placing him alongside other great British figures in science and history. The banknote not only featured his portrait, but also included a quote from him about the power of scientific discovery. This is only a foretaste of what is to come and only the shadow of what is going to be. This gesture ensured that his name would be remembered by future generations. Turing's journey from being a persecuted genius to being honored as one of history's greatest thinkers is a story of both tragedy and triumph. His ideas shaped the modern world, influencing everything from computing to artificial intelligence to biology. But just as important as his scientific contributions is the lesson his life teaches about justice, acceptance, and the importance of recognizing those who change the world, even when society refuses to accept them. Alan Turing's legacy is not just about his work in computing, cryptography, or mathematics. His story is also about how society treats people who are different. Turing was a man ahead of his time, both in his scientific thinking and in the way he lived his life. He dared to be himself in a world that was not ready to accept him. This made his life difficult, but it also made his achievements even more remarkable. One of the most important lessons from Turing's life is that true progress often comes from those who think differently. Many of the greatest minds in history faced rejection, criticism, or misunderstanding in their time. Galileo was punished for saying the Earth moves around the sun. Darwin was mocked for his theory of evolution. Turing was persecuted for his personal life. Yet all of them changed the world in ways that could not be undone. Their ideas became the foundation for future discoveries, and their stories became symbols of the struggle between ignorance and knowledge. Turing's work in artificial intelligence is a perfect example of how far ahead he was in his thinking. In 1950, he wrote a paper titled Computing Machinery and Intelligence, in which he asked a bold question: can machines think? At that time, computers were still very simple compared to today's standards. They could follow instructions, perform calculations, and process data, but they could not learn or make decisions on their own. Yet, Turing believed that one day, machines would be able to mimic human thought. He proposed an experiment, now known as the Turing test, to determine whether a machine could exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from a human. The Turing test was a simple but powerful idea. If a person could have a conversation with a machine without realizing they were speaking to a machine, then that machine could be considered intelligent. This idea became the basis for research in artificial intelligence. Today, AI is a reality. Virtual assistants, chatbots, and self-learning algorithms are all based on principles that Turing predicted decades ago. Machine learning, neural networks, and deep learning are modern advancements that continue to build on the foundation he laid. Without Turing's ideas, the field of artificial intelligence would not be where it is today. Beyond artificial intelligence, Turing's influence is also seen in modern computing. The basic principles of how computers store and process information come from his work. Every time we use a smartphone, browse the internet, or send an email, we are interacting with technology built on Turing's concepts. His idea of a universal machine which could perform any calculation given the right instructions is the foundation of all modern computers. Today's programming languages, operating systems, and computer architectures all trace their origins back to the theories he developed. Another aspect of Turing's legacy is his contribution to modern cryptography. During World War II, he helped develop methods to break the Enigma code, which allowed the Allies to decode secret German messages. But his influence did not stop there. The principles he used in breaking codes are now applied in digital security. Online banking, encrypted messaging, and secure transactions all rely on cryptographic techniques that evolved from Turing's work. His understanding of algorithms and patterns became the basis for protecting digital information in the modern world. Even outside the field of technology, Turing's ideas have had a lasting impact. His research in mathematical biology, particularly his work on morphogenesis, has been applied to understanding natural patterns. Scientists now use his models to explain how everything from animal markings to plant growth follows predictable mathematical rules. His ability to see connections between different fields of science allowed him to make discoveries that others had overlooked. But perhaps the most important part of Turing's legacy is the recognition he received after his death. For many years, his name was known only among mathematicians and computer scientists. The general public knew little about his contributions. However, as more information became available, people began to understand just how much he had done for the world. His work in codebreaking was declassified, revealing his crucial role in the war. Historians and researchers started to highlight his influence on computing and artificial intelligence. His story was told in books, documentaries, and films, bringing him the recognition he had been denied during his lifetime. In recent years, efforts have been made to correct the injustice he faced. The official apology from the British government, the royal pardon, and his appearance on the £50 banknote were all important steps in honoring his legacy. But perhaps the greatest tribute to Turing is that his ideas continue to shape the world. Every time a computer performs a complex calculation, every time artificial intelligence is used to solve a problem, every time secure digital communication takes place, Turing's work is present. His life was filled with challenges, but his vision changed the future. He did not live to see how far his ideas would go, but today we live in a world built on the foundation he created. His legacy is not just in machines and algorithms, but in the idea that knowledge and progress should never be limited by prejudice or fear. Alan Turing's story is one of brilliance, perseverance, and injustice. He was a man who saw possibilities where others saw limits. He imagined a future where machines could think, where mathematics could solve complex problems, and where logic could unlock the deepest secrets of science. But while his ideas shaped the modern world, the society he lived in was not ready to accept him. His contributions were overlooked, and his personal life led to his downfall. Yet, despite the challenges he faced, his work laid the foundation for the technology we rely on today. Turing's ideas were revolutionary. He not only helped to crack the Enigma code during World War II but also developed the fundamental concepts of computer science. His vision of a universal machine, which could perform any calculation given the right instructions, became the blueprint for modern computers. Today, we take for granted the ability of computers to process vast amounts of information, solve complex equations, and perform tasks at incredible speeds. But in Turing's time, these ideas were almost unimaginable. Computers were not yet a reality, and most people could not see the potential of what he was proposing. One of the most remarkable things about Turing was his ability to see beyond the present. He did not just work with the technology of his time. He envisioned what it could become. He was not satisfied with solving immediate problems. He wanted to explore the deeper questions of intelligence, logic, and computation. His work on artificial intelligence was decades ahead of its time. He proposed the Turing test, a way to determine if a machine could exhibit human-like intelligence. Today, this concept is a fundamental part of AI research. Every time we interact with virtual assistants, chatbots, or self-learning algorithms, we are witnessing the impact of Turing's ideas. But despite his achievements, Turing's life was filled with struggle. After the war, his contributions were not widely recognized. His work on computing was groundbreaking, yet he did not receive the same level of fame as other scientists of his era. Worse, his personal life led to his persecution. In 1952, he was convicted under laws that criminalized homosexuality. Instead of being celebrated for his genius, he was treated as a criminal. He was forced to undergo chemical treatment that deeply affected his health and well-being. Just 2 years later, in 1954, he was found dead in his home. His death was ruled a suicide, though some believe it may have been accidental. For many years, Turing's story was forgotten by the public. His wartime contributions remained classified, and his role in the development of computing was not widely acknowledged. But as time passed, historians and scientists began to uncover the true extent of his impact. Books, documentaries, and films brought his story to a new generation. The world finally began to recognize the debt it owed to Turing. In 2009, the British government issued an official apology for the way he was treated. In 2013, he was granted a posthumous royal pardon. These actions were symbolic, but they represented a step toward acknowledging the injustice he faced. In 2019, he was chosen to appear on the British £50 banknote, a fitting tribute to a man whose work transformed the modern world. But perhaps the most meaningful part of Turing's legacy is not in official apologies or public honors. It is in the way his ideas continue to shape our lives. Every time we use a computer, send an email, or search for information online, We are using technology built on the principles he established. Every time AI helps us translate languages, recommend music, or drive autonomous cars, we are witnessing the realization of his vision. His work lives on in every field that relies on computing, from medicine to finance, from space exploration to everyday technology. Turing's story is a reminder of the power of human thought. It teaches us that progress is often driven by those who dare to ask difficult questions, who challenge existing ideas, and who push the boundaries of what is possible. But it also serves as a warning about the dangers of prejudice and injustice. Turing gave the world one of its greatest gifts, yet he was repaid with cruelty. His life was cut short, but his influence is timeless. In the end, Alan Turing's legacy is not just about the machines he imagined or the codes he broke. It is about the idea that knowledge should be pursued without fear, that intelligence should be valued above conformity, and that true genius is often found in those who refuse to fit the mold. His story is one of triumph and tragedy, but above all, it is a story of vision, a vision that continues to shape the world, long after he is gone. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.